Welcome to Metaguild.
Mhm.
Let's start. So hello, Metaguild Nation. I am Johan, and I will be your host for today's AMA, accompanied by the best of co-hosts, Feligene. Thank you for being here, Feligene. It's always a blast to have you here with us.
Thank you, Johan. As you probably know by now, I'm the moral support host of Johan. So
No, no way.
here I am, and it's very nice to meet you, Jess.
So
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure to be here, and big fan of Metaguild and what you guys have brought to Aavegotchi for so long now. It seems like it's the perfect time to do something like this and just share, and kind of happy to answer questions, and maybe I'll have a few for you guys too.
of course, you're very welcome. So I would like to welcome everybody to this very special Ask Me Anything for Aavegotchi. And I would like you to think about this as your opportunity to ask our guest anything, either through the dedicated text channel called Aavegotchi AMA. You can find it. It's just above the gathering room. Or by raising your hand when we arrive to the user question chapter. So our special guest, which we are very delighted to have here with us, is none other than Aavegotchi summoner Jesse Johnson. Thank you for being here with us, Jesse.
Thank you, Johan. And yeah, that is my name. My other handle you may know me by is gldnXross. You can see it there in the text chat. We just pronounce it like, I know it's misspelled, but we just pronounce it as gldnXross. So,
Okay.
yeah. So,
Well,
pleasure.
It's a very nice nickname.
So I think there's a lot of people here at Metaguild that are already very, very deep into Aavegotchi, their Gotchi gang, but maybe there's others that are from other gaming sides, right? So maybe you guys can let me know where's a good place to start and what's appropriate.
So I'll start off by introducing Metaguild in short. So we are a community comprised of blockchain enthusiasts, gamers, and developers. Our aim is to advance the play-to-earn landscape at large and have a profound impact and footprint in the metaverse. Our primary mission is to empower our players and protect their interests everywhere in the metaverse. And maybe one of the co-founders of Metaguild here with us today, Igor, could walk us through Metaguild's history and how it ties back to Aavegotchi, because Metaguild's roots are very intertwined with Aavegotchi. Welcome, Igor.
Yeah, thank you, Johan. I would love to remind to everyone that great times when we was on Ethereum blockchain, and if I remember correctly, there was craziness happening with DeFi and NFTs, and we had to move to Polygon and delay a bit launch, but I think it ended up good. So as most of guild members of Metaguild know, we have been following the project in the beginning, and we participated even in the first wearables raffle. We have been using Aave, for example, even before Aavegotchi started, and Aavegotchi is built on top of Aave. If you don't know, every ghost, every Gotchi has its spirit, which is our tokens. I want to mention that our community, Metaguild, was founded on top of Hound.com community. So our history started with Aavegotchi.
Thank you for being here, Igor, again. So moving on. So Jesse, today's audience, as you've guessed, includes people who are familiar with Aavegotchi and may have invested in your project. But we also have newbies who are still very new to the Gotchiverse. So it would be great if you could give us a brief introduction about yourself, tell us a bit about the project mission, its vision, and maybe the Gotchiverse.
Sure. My background with NFTs goes back a little bit before Aavegotchi. I was very fortunate to be very early to the ERC 721 standard and connect with builders in the space. So if I work my way back, I used to work for a group called ZB Group. ZB is Chinese for Zhongbi. They're one of the very first, they rebranded, but they're actually the first or second BTC exchange that ever existed in mainland China. so super old school. And I joined them for business development and kind of breaking the language barrier and some of the UI, like language support, all that kind of stuff. And met a lot of projects along the way. Finally met some projects that didn't want their ERC20 token to be listed on our exchange. They had these NFTs. And I was like, well, what is this? So very early on, between that and CryptoKitties, I was pretty tuned in and very, very interested in NFTs as a technology, as a new medium for culture. And I could totally see where that was kind of going, like no idea what form it would take, but knew that this was very, very powerful. So my background, it led me to leave ZB and go full-time with Zach Burks, who was building out the very first version of Mintable. So some of you may know Mintable.app. Mintable was the very first Ethereum-based platform where if you didn't know any Solidity or coding, you could still upload your metadata, pay some gas, and create an NFT. And so I thought that was really important, that that kind of usability was there from the start. So invested my time in that and working with Zach, getting us into the Long Hash incubator in Singapore. We relocated there. He continues to build that out today. They're doing fantastic. They're multi-chain now. And in my case, I left to go pursue some more specific use cases. So basically my main use of NFTs is always like, what can we do other than prove digital scarcity? I love that blockchains allow us to have digital scarcity, but there's got to be more interesting use cases, more utility. And that led to an idea called BullionX, where we took gold stablecoins and wrapped them in NFTs. And then what we learned there, that was the first time that a 721 was wrapped around ERC20 tokens. So, you'd have a gold NFT and there were actually, let's say, 5 grams worth of gold stablecoins inside of it. So pretty cool. But it was kind of a proof of concept in some sense because we were still super early. There wasn't this PFP craze. NFTs hadn't taken off in a big way yet. And we wanted to do more with like gamification. And that's where I was working with Coder Dan, our co-founder at Aavegotchi. And he was doing a lot of the front end for BullionX, but we were having conversations about all these other use cases and how to expand it. And so we knew we wanted to have our own original IP to be the delivery vehicle for these ideas we were sharing. And we took our idea of taking interest generating tokens to the team at Aave. Stanny and the whole team there were very receptive to it. They were supportive completely from the beginning. And so we were very happy to have their support and pursue creating Aavegotchi in a serious way. And that's when, to try to separate that project from things we were seeing in the space, we really wanted to have a fair distribution kind of launch where anyone who wanted to participate could. And so that's where the bonding curve came from. And then from there, a few months later, we were able to deliver on the first haunt of Aavegotchis that so many of you participated in. And from there, it's history, right? We've delivered a second haunt of Aavegotchis as voted by the DAO. Tons of different utility and features for the Aavegotchi.com dApp. And also the community stepping up and teams like your own building out on top of the protocol, building on top of the original smart contracts to create even more surprises and powerful tools. So that's where we are now. If you own an Aavegotchi, and in short, if people ask you what is that, it's a digital piggy bank that holds interest-generating tokens. It has a life of its own. It's our attempt to create a better crypto pet. Before Aavegotchis, everyone thought of CryptoKitties as a crypto pet. And we thought if there's going to be a subgenre of NFTs considered as pets, then we have to do a better job because I never play with my CryptoKitties. They just collect dust. And with us, we have the kinship. And so you have to bring it to life. You have to pet it. You have to take care of it. And it's not that you have to, it's that you want to because you actually get connected with your Aavegotchis in an emotional way. And if we are successful in that, then we're on our way. And so now with the Gotchiverse coming March 31st, we're finding more ways to have shared experiences with your Aavegotchi. And I think it will only make the original proposition of a better crypto pet even more of a reality. So that's where we are. We just launched Gotchi Lending today. So I definitely think that's also a very huge innovation here. It's our answer to the scholarship program. And hopefully we can dive into that today. If some of you have tried out Gotchi Lending, I'd love feedback. And maybe I'll lend something here while I'm here with you guys, and we'll see who can borrow my favorite Aavegotchi.
That would be great. Thank you for this very comprehensive introduction. I'm pretty sure any listener we have who was not aware of these details will most definitely appreciate it. So, Jesse, being a pioneer of the blockchain gaming space, I would like to ask you this question that was bugging me. And so, do you think games, video games in particular, are the key to mainstreaming the world to crypto?
I actually do. I wasn't always there, but over the last few years, it's become more and more clear that basically what blockchain and crypto has unlocked is, for better or worse, it's the financialization of everything. So industries that previously had nothing to do with finance are finding that once they're on the blockchain, their assets, then by nature, there's going to be a financial aspect to it. And so this digital property rights unlocks new use cases, and there's a whole generation of people coming up now that maybe in another life would have had no interest in financial terms like market maker, liquidity provider, lender, borrower, all those things, even myself included to some extent. And now you don't have to go be a major in finance or work for a bank to have access to all these terms, because that's the way the whole world is going as it gets digitized. You need to be aware of these. So financial literacy, I think, is redefining itself, and games is going to probably be the one place where the majority of this can play out first. You know, there's supply chain, there's so many other areas NFTs can touch. But I think for blockchain gaming or GameFi, there's so much crazy potential there that it almost seems inevitable at this point. And I hope the kind of smart contracts and different things we're innovating with and trying to deliver it turns out to be a huge turning point. And, you know, one fallout of all of this is I think younger and younger people are going to be exposed to they're going to be financially literate to an extent, far greater extent than, you know, most people say in their 30s or above, or even anybody born today. The next generation coming that's not born yet, they're going to be learning about LPing probably while they're learning their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. So that's just the world we're headed towards.
So it seems.
It's very inspiring as a vision of the future.
It's going to introduce new challenges and problems, but on the whole, I think there's no downside to people being more literate, whether it's literally literature or it's financial literate. So financial literacy. So it's going to have benefits with just a higher IQ population all over the world that I think we can't even imagine what the benefits are yet or be too specific. But on the whole, this is all a very, very positive development.
Sure.
Jesse, you have just described the reason why I, for example, don't want to do anything than blockchain gaming, Web3 gaming in the near future.
Well, relative to the other industries that maybe blockchain is touching, gaming there's that natural sync. They're both digital, they're both global, and I don't see any other way where it's becoming more obvious every day that GameFi is going to be absolutely massive. And the trick is that we need good models from the beginning for a good foundation so that some of the less desirable outcomes can be avoided and mistakes can be minimized and people don't get hurt. So that said, there's a great responsibility I see, but I think we're all experimenting and still very, very early in the process.
Thank you for your answer.
Also, if I can add, the way that Aavegotchi is following, it's an example of how I see the evolution of Web3, because you started with finance with Aave, then you moved to gaming, with Aavegotchi. And now that the Gotchiverse is coming, it adds a social layer to the game, a very important aspect of community and playing with your friends. And I believe that it's what Web3 as a whole had to do to like respect the steps of the technology. With this, I mean that it started with finance because the like a high gas, it was the most capital intensive of these three aspects and the one less hit by the gas costs. But then with the new technology like Polygon, you could do gamified, like games on Web3. And now with the Gotchiverse, you can also have the social aspect. So it's really beautiful, as you were saying, that all these aspects come together and allow people to have more knowledge in a gamified way. So I think it's a really beautiful vision, the one you had, and yeah, I'm excited for what's to come.
Yeah, the way you describe it too, it's really worked out well where we've kind of organically, I don't know, added layers to the cake, so to speak, over time. And you're right, the most capital intensive kind of had to go first. Polygon unlocked new potential, so we could do things like kinship and petting your Aavegotchi and microtransactions and airdrops of rarity farming rewards. All those things are possible on a layer 2. And now with I think we can take it even a step further. And I will say when it launches on March 31st, the social aspects are quite limited, right? You're basically at the minimum viable product for what the Gotchiverse is. And that's okay, because that's why we're calling it a play drop. And you're in early, and there's no pre-sale of the 4 new tokens that are being made available. It's simply putting in gameplay time. But over the coming weeks, we'll be adding a lot of social features because we totally recognize that that is, at the end of the day, the absolute like value add that is bigger than any other we could do. And that's to let people actually connect in a social environment. And it's not going to look like a Facebook or a Twitter even. And we're fine with that. It's also not Ready Player One and what people think the metaverse is, like the Matrix or something. But it's going to be a social hub for sure, with chat, district-wide chat, global chat, parcel chat, different ways to define who you're talking to at different scenarios inside the Gotchiverse. And then from there, the sky's the limit to keep adding on more and more features that are desired by the DAO and the community.
Beautifully put. I'm very excited for the Gotchiverse. So I have a question for Igor from a contributor from Stockend. His question is, what gave Metaguild so much confidence in Aavegotchi?
That's a really good question. I guess the vision of the team, the first point, because seeing that they are following values of Web3, privacy, like basis values of Web3. I personally like that all gotchas SVGs and start on blockchain, directly on blockchain. And I am not a huge fan of art NFTs which are stored on IPFS or even on centralized storages. So the first would be, as I said, the team and the values they follow. And second, of course, is community. It is the best community I have ever seen, and I think that it was a primer for us to build our community. If you even look at metrics of Aavegotchi DAO in their DAO forums, in snapshot activity, it is the most active DAO in the whole industry, and this inspires. Every member inspires. Everyone is very helpful. Everyone is ready to help you with any question you have. Yeah, I think this is the main points, and we discussed these things many times internally with Sandra and other co-founder and core team members. Yeah, thank you for a great question.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you for the kind words. I think, yeah, it's been a team effort. Like we just kind of put the vision forward and see ourselves as kind of just, I don't know, maybe creating a framework for everybody to be able to work and be their best. So there's a lot of talent, and we want people more talented than myself or Coder Dan coming up and building on top of the framework that we have. So, you know, in terms of where we go from here, I think there's, you know, sky's the limit. We're going to see a lot of growth here in the near future, and hopefully guilds like Metaguild will reap great success by having been so early and being so ready for the Gotchiverse.
So I'll be moving over to Gotchi specific questions. And I'll be starting with the Metaguild team questions. So the first question is, what is the glitter token and how does communal channeling work?
Yeah, so the glitter token, I'll type it here for anyone wondering, the GLTR token is not live yet. So if you see one, watch out, it's not real. Our glitter token is related to the Gotchi Alchemica DEX. So the GAX, as we call it. This is basically going to be a DEX deployed by the Aavegotchi DAO as a liquidity provisions reward. So, you know, most DEXs have a rewards token for LPing. In our case, it's glitter. And the glitter use case is for a number of things. The main one starting out is that it's a gamified token that plugs back into the Gotchiverse. So if you want to craft things and you want to craft faster, then you can use the glitter token to speed up your minting or crafting of NFTs in game. If you've ever played Clash of Clans, which is one of the big influences of, they have a gem, right? And you use these gems to speed up your build time. And likewise here, if you're willing to LP your Alchemica tokens to the GAX exchange, then you will be rewarded with these glitter tokens, and they'll be, I think, very highly desirable because they're going to help you achieve builds faster than the other players. And so I can see guilds also using this as a currency for their treasury, maybe memberships in their lodge, which is one of the big builds you'll have is you'll be able to have Metaguild lodges, maybe one, maybe multiple lodges will serve your purpose. And I could see a scenario where guilds will want to use glitter as kind of a inter-guild currency, so to speak. So that might be one option. And so glitter is going to be a very important part of the ecosystem because it's so key that has a lot of utility that makes people want to consider LPing their tokens on a DEX.
Going back to the glitter token, what is most mind-blowing is how you need to win the wearable crests for your gotcha lodges. And for that, you need glitter token. So you're kind of like guilds are kind of forced to LP.
Good point. Yeah, if you want to, that's a very important point. The glitter plays a big role with those lodges, including what the crest of your lodge will be, and your crest, deciding what wearable or crest you want to use really dictates what kind of accessibility to that particular lodge there will be. So that's going to be key. And again, that's kind of why I mentioned like guilds will probably want to accumulate glitter, and they will probably want to use that as kind of maybe a membership type of rite of passage or something. Not that everyone has to LP every member, but there's some room for creativity there.
Yeah, it is mind-blowing.
I'm taking notes.
Moving on. So the next question is, what are liquidators and what is the grand view for this implementation?
Liquidators are the little robots. They are the arch nemesis, the enemies of the Aavegotchi, competing for the dear Alchemica of the world. And they are also the ones you fight in the great battles that are scheduled to happen over the next couple of years. So there's 9 great battles in the prophecy, and those are showdowns between the liquidators. We're still early enough, but the original premise that remains today is that they will be a one-time use NFT. We can mint and airdrop these NFTs to communities that we believe are easy to onboard or want to be onboarded, DAOs, guilds, any partner really, competitions. And we can give these out almost like a faucet. There's no supply cap. They're not for collecting. They're pure utility access cards to the game. But you don't get to play as an Aavegotchi. That's Gotchi lending. If you want to be a Gotchi, you go to Gotchi lending. When the liquidators arrive, this is your chance to play on the enemy side of the battle line and do a totally different approach where you are out just with a one-time use chance to play the game, kind of like a free trial. And if it goes well, then you earn a lot of Alchemica while you're out there in the grid exploring and basically competing with the Aavegotchis. And then, yeah, you're able to, hopefully after the experience, you either want to go get another liquidator, borrow an Aavegotchi, or go buy your own Aavegotchi.
This dynamic of like letting free players start out as the bad guy, and if they want to if they like the game and if they want to join more, they can invest and play as the good guy. It's very nice because it adds a layer of it's a sort of moral evolution of the player. Like they start out as a free player and they are the liquidator, but if they really like the game, they can become a good Gotchi. So I believe it's beautiful.
Yeah, they're kind of literally like a value sink at first, but very quickly can become a value add to the whole ecosystem. So it reflects that, yeah, going from bad guy to good guy.
We wanted to ask you, how do you see the Gotchiverse in 1 year? And in more specific questions about this, we would like to know maybe how guilds will interact with each other, and if there is a place for a lone wolf player.
Great questions. There's a few there that they're all related. I see huge success for the Gotchiverse in the next year, no matter how you define it. It could be number of active players, of course. We're going to be in a very, very different place than where we have been for the first year and a half, first 2 years of Aavegotchi, where we were really just, inside the cryptosphere. And there's you don't really measure the success in terms of active players because the game is limited to, until today, you really had to own an Aavegotchi to play. So there was literally a hard cap on how many people could enjoy the game at a given time. Now with Gotchi lending and then the Gotchiverse and then liquidators, we're just going to keep building this momentum where as long as the game is delivered how it's supposed to be, we're hoping for a very addictive, in a good way, a very enjoyable gameplay experience where we're just able to keep the momentum going, and we'll be in a place where there are really so many guilds competing and playing together that it's the #1 game for that kind of experience. I think we're totally built for positioning ourselves to be like the go-to Web3 game, like the defining what a Web3 game should be. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of competition out there right now, but we have some unique differentiating factors in that we don't abstract away the blockchain. We run to the blockchain, and you really learn about working with crypto and smart contracts by playing the game and being part of Aavegotchi. So I think that's very powerful because we believe crypto is going to continue growing at such a fast rate. It's outpacing the internet's adoption from 20 years ago. And we just think crypto is popular. It's going to completely redefine what gaming is, and we're going to be at the forefront of that by embracing it and not trying to hide, the blockchain transactions or something like that. People are curious and they want to play with crypto. So we're going to run to it. And what that means for guilds, I think is, we've had so much feedback from not only you guys, lots of conversations with Igor and other guilds, that we kind of built this out again as a framework where guilds can flourish. So I always, when I meet new people and they ask about it, I always say the next YGG, something bigger than YGG is going to come out of players and guilds playing in the Gotchiverse. And there's going to be a lot of guilds coming out because it's designed where it's really just a matter of scale, but everybody has their own gang of friends, their own guild, and then it's just a matter of how successful you are at scaling it. So yeah, I look forward to guilds of all shapes and sizes. and a lot of that will incorporate with the lodges. Lodges are not live on March 31st. So on March 31st, as a guild, it comes down to lending, and you have that third wallet. You can have your guild whitelist, and only guild members can have access to your Gotchi. That's the beginning. But then when the lodges go live, you're literally hosting events and a lot of utility on your parcel for your members. And then you have estates, and you'll be able to connect land parcels and kind of build out your guild's empire. And so all of this will tie together with kind of district level micro DAOs, where each district in the Citadel has voting and has decisions to be made. And so you're going to definitely see different parts of the Citadel get their own personality that reflects the dominant guilds or community members in that particular district. And I think that's good. It's going to add a lot of personality to the Citadel. It's going to give guilds a lot of room to develop their own aesthetic and their own style. When you first go in there on March 31st, you might feel like the Citadel's really big and really empty. But I think of it as like a coloring book, and we're all going to color this thing in together with user-generated content over the coming weeks and months and years. So it's going to be a coloring book with a lot more color a year from now. And it will be communities like Metaguild that are leading the way into deciding what that will be.
Very inspiring. So, although Aavegotchis are very cute and peaceful creatures in nature, the Gotchi Bible kind of says otherwise. So our question is, how will players be incentivized to take part in wars? And what are the great battles? And will fighting other Aavegotchis be worth it?
Yeah, so Gotchis, they are full of love, but that doesn't mean they don't have a need to to have a little battle once in a while. So they definitely will, they're three-dimensional characters in that sense. And so let's see here. There's a couple things. Inside the Citadel, it's mostly a peaceful place, except for during the great battles. So I'll come back to those in a minute. But when you have an Aavegotchi in the Citadel, you're more focused on the play mode for crafting and building and farming on your parcels. It's when we let down the drawbridge and you go out into the much larger world called the grid, that's where you're going to be competing against liquidators for the riches of the Alchemica. And there you can do totally like RPG melee hack and slash style gameplay. And your different wearables will have different use cases out there. So if your Aavegotchi's a naked Aavegotchi with no wearable, it might be at a bit of a disadvantage out there. That's when Gotchi lending, you might start to see premiums on certain Aavegotchis because they have really good weapons. And then, you'll see that differentiation between a dressed Aavegotchi and naked Aavegotchi. But on March 31st, just to be clear, the wearables won't do much. Those features are coming in the coming weeks and months. So that's one part. Then there's the great battles. Those were seen almost as a great, I don't know, it's like a chance for major milestones to be achieved community-wide. So there's your solo adventure. You're always trying to make more Alchemica. There's your guild. You're always trying to contribute more and build something together with community builds. And then there's like the meta game where all the Gotchis as worldwide are in this battle against something, and it's the liquidators. And so when certain thresholds are met, that will trigger a great battle that was prophesied about. And that's when the liquidators will temporarily be able to invade the Citadel and make their way towards the Great Portal at the very center. And so this will be a very fun time where we're able to have a limited, say, 48-hour, I shouldn't say 48 hours. We'll see how long it is, but it's a time where there's certain Alchemica that's been stored up inside the Great Portal through gameplay. Like a certain percent goes into there. It's like a big piggy bank. And then that's going to be a play to earn aspect that's just gamified, where depending on the results of this competition, we'll see liquidators making very good Alchemica rewards during this time. We'll also see Aavegotchis hopefully having a very good experience. And when the dust settles, it should make for a very exciting weekend with everyone playing together. And, also a lot of new eyeballs. I think having event-based real-time worldwide events is way better than the same predictable gameplay all the time. It's like something to look forward to. It's like the Super Bowl or the World Cup, and it draws a lot of new attention to it and brings in even more players and helps the whole Gotchiverse grow.
Yeah, will definitely make for great streams.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was wondering, why not have a more advanced crafting system? As in, or maybe special traits for gotchis that specialize in a certain type of crafting.
Ooh. Well, it's a balance. As you know, with Aavegotchi, it can get pretty in depth if you want it to be. And we always make sure that it can also be pretty simple if you want a casual game. So when it came to crafting, I would say it's starting on the casual side, a casual crafting gameplay, but that doesn't mean it can't get more complex as we go. So right now the UI shows the 4 Alchemica tokens. You need specific recipes or combinations of those 4 in order to build different types of NFTs. And then if you want to build it faster, you bring in the glitter as the 5th element. But that doesn't mean it always has to be that way. There's definitely been conversation and internally in Pixelcraft and also in the DAO, I've seen some conversation about, ways to expand on that and do more. So if you guys have specific ideas about like what you just mentioned, it can definitely get very, very interesting. We just have to be careful not to sacrifice the casual onboarding, because we'll see. In some ways, it's a hardcore game. You have to learn Web3 and you have to be willing to do on-chain transactions and all of that. But in other ways, we want it to be still relatively accessible and just, without being boring, at the risk of being too simple. So we'll walk before we run, but then I wouldn't be surprised if some of those kind of more complex crafting recipes come in down the road. Maybe more tokens, maybe certain traits. Yeah, both those would be very interesting angles.
Yeah, sounds very, very exciting. So maybe we could move on to questions from guild members. I'll pick questions from the AMA chat or the Aavegotchi AMA chat. So the first question is from Moad. Is there any programs for anti-bots? Can bots be a problem for the game?
So we've definitely designed and prepared for bots. The way the game is, it's not like a turn-based game where, it's like cards or something that could maybe be more easily botted. There are some very advanced botting techniques out there for, a top-down 2D RPG like this. But we've done a lot of efforts on both the front end and the back end to really limit what bots can do. And we'll address issues as they come, but I think we've anticipated and fixed most, if not all, the botting issues. We really want it to be humans. This is for the humans, except for those liquidator robots, of course.
So next question in line is from Cartoja. He asks, is the gameplay that will be available on 31st of March similar to the stress tests?
Yeah, so I would say it's better than the stress tests, unless you're talking about the most recent and currently ongoing stress test. We're live on Mumbai testnet right now, and there's some videos floating around out there. If you search for, Gotchiverse testnet, you'll see gameplay footage, and that is pretty much a mere one-to-one of what's coming on March 31st, this Thursday. So yeah, it's great. People are loving it. We got the kids' approval. Kids are always very honest, and a couple of different community members have like some 4 and 5-year-olds in their house, and they've handed the game off to those kids, and the kids seem to love it. They're looking for Kek, the rarest of the 4 tokens, and very pleased when they find it. So, I think in that sense, it's going to be a really good time, and you can check out the testnet version for the closest comparison to what's going to be available March 31st.
Yeah, I've already checked it, and I myself was looking for Kek.
Yeah.
So another question from Cartoa is, will the game play for 24/7, or will it be limited in time?
No, it's going to be up and running, hopefully perfect uptime. We want it up as long as possible, as often as possible. So no plans to bring it down. There'll be an ebb and flow to the release of the Alchemica tokens in the world. I think currently it's set at every 1 minute, every 60 seconds, there's more and more Alchemica that will spawn in the world, ready for you to pick up and get to your save point, your vortex, to withdraw it to your wallet. So that's the plan, but not every 60 seconds is the same amount. Like I think every hour there's one or two super blooms of Alchemica. And then what's more is we also have a way where if there's, let's say, a big event, we can have a special event and kind of crank up the Alchemica emissions rate for a limited time without breaking our pre-scheduled release budget. So there's some flexibility as long as we stay within the preordained budgets.
I see. Thank you. Next question is from Stookend. He asks, many people are waiting for Aavegotchi. So is the dev team expecting problems in the initial days of release, or is the dev team very much prepared?
Yeah, I think the biggest question marks have been around how many players we can support live at one time. We had some breakthroughs we are working towards and achieved in the last couple of weeks. So, I think I can confidently say we're going to be able to support up to 10,000 Aavegotchis in the world at the same time. It's going to be a very lively, very busy world during this 30-day play drop. And that's huge because, your average virtual world can only support hundreds, if not maybe a couple thousand players at most on one instance. We'll all be on the same instance together, moving in real time together. And in that way, it's much closer to something like EVE Online. In terms of the architecture that we've built from scratch on the back end, it's very, very powerful and super, super thrilled that we're achieving those kind of numbers. The only possible bottleneck isn't on the server side. It might actually be the front end and efficiencies we need to improve there. So we'll see, but we're shooting for 10,000 support from day one and only scaling infinitely from there.
Thank you. Another question is, what differentiates Aavegotchi from other play-to-earn games in terms of making the economy stable?
Ooh, we could go into this for a while. It's just very thoughtful tokenomics and lots of time put into it with traditional crypto tokenomics experts, which I guess that we count ourselves among that to some extent. Coder Dan putting a lot of thought into it, working with myself, with people like Vincent, Let's Go Bankless, key people on the team. And then traditional game economists as well have come on and provide a lot of feedback throughout. Really all you can do is iterate. And the more you do that, the better off you'll be. So even though it sounds like a lot, like 500,000 FUD tokens will be released per day into the Gotchiverse during the first month of gameplay. It sounds like a lot, but relative to, we're starting at zero liquidity. So when you think of it, it's still a drop in the bucket compared to the rest of the tokens that eventually will be distributed to supply. So if anything, it might not be enough. And so that's one thing that I think everybody here should be aware of is there's no pre-mine, there's no founders allocation. Literally everyone on March 31st is on equal footing, including myself. I don't know how I'm going to be able to run the company and play with you guys in the Gotchiverse and make any leaderboards. So I'm a little concerned. I have to join some guilds, and if you guys give me a free membership, maybe you can help me out. Because
you're most welcome.
Appreciate it. Because we're all going to be on equal footing, and those 500,000 a day going out are the very first of their kind. And knowing that there'll be LPing incentives down the road and all of that, nobody has a head start on any of that. So we'll see how it goes, and really excited to join with you guys in that endeavor. So make sure, my advice would be get familiar with the Gotchi lending UI. That's why we debuted it here 3 days early. It's syncing with the subgraph, so there might be some filtering options that are not quite working yet, but those will be working itself out in the coming hours. It's only been live half a day. So just keep getting familiar with that, and then if you don't own an Aavegotchi, you can be in early. And maybe you guys already have a whitelist and strategy set up. I don't know if that's something you guys have deployed. But we'll be there at the very start. And If I can, I'll take one more question, and then I'll conclude by taking my favorite Aavegotchi. This is me demonstrating my faith in the lending contracts. The Aavegotchi named Golden Cross with all my favorite wearables on it, and I will create a lending listing. I've got it in front of me right now. I'm going to do a 4-hour lending duration and see if one of you are able to scoop it up if you would be so interested.
Actually, we are out of questions, so I think we can wrap up right now.
All right. Okay, let me show you what I'm looking at, guys. I'll drop a screenshot. So this is my Gotchi, my favorite Gotchi. It's actually a middle-brained kind of Gotchi, but it's my favorite for sentimental reasons. And yeah, I'm gonna lend it here for 4 hours. Now today there's no profit split, but it's 100 going to the borrower, and in theory you would have all of it to yourself. It's more to demonstrate what you can do in terms of splits. So with that, I'm going to hit the create listing icon, and let's see who finds Golden Cross first. Can you hear that?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Sweet, sweet sound.
I've been refreshing my landing page 100 times.
Yeah, here we go. It's still creating. I think the transaction's processing. Good luck, friends. No ghost up front. A level 3 Golden Cross Gotchi. Best of luck, whoever gets it. Just leave a message here in the Aavegotchi AMA chat. Really, Dr. Wagme says he got it.
Wow.
Really?
4 hours with Golden Cross Gotchi.
It is.
Oh, no joke. Look at that. Well, this has been a pleasure, guys. I hope I answered some good questions for you. And if you want to, just hit me up anytime you have more questions or ideas to run by, as we always do. So keep the communication channels wide open.
Thank you very much for coming, and see you in Gotchiverse.
Thank you.
It's
All
been
right,
very
thank you.
nice having you. We'd love to have you again. Have
Absolutely.
a great evening.